Hello and welcome to another episode of the E-commerce Coffee Break. Today we want to talk about Google Ads and what kind of impact Google Ads can have on small to medium brands. Specifically, we want to find out from an expert how a simple but effective setup can look like when you talk about Google Ads and then going into analytics and all of these things. So therefore, I have Andy Janaitis with me. He's the founder and chief strategist of PPC Pitbulls. Big dog person, as we can see from here already. And he works with a passionate product people to build authentic customer relationships to get more sales online. And he focuses on demystifying e-commerce marketing and driving measurable results through Google Ads, in-depth data analytics, and custom business-specific digital marketing strategy. So let's welcome Andy to the show. Hi, Andy. How are you today?
Great. How are you doing, Klaus? Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Google Analytics, Google Ads, everything that comes from there might, for a small business that's in e-commerce, that is scaling, a bit of a mystery, a bit of a secret to get in there. These tools are around for a very long time. They have 1,000,001 different features. So we want to talk about on how you can simplify getting into this world of paid advertising. Give me a bit of a background, what you see from your clients, where they struggle the most with.
Definitely. Yeah. So I think a lot of that kind of concern about Google Ads, as you reference, comes from the history of the product. In the past, it was a lot of, massive keyword research. Let's get 1,000,000 long tail keywords. And, we run a lot of audits for new clients that come in. And it's amazing sometimes when we inherit these Google Ads accounts, we'll see just the complexity of the setup with 20 to 30 different campaigns and ad groups, and then, literally thousands of keywords oftentimes of these like exact match keywords of, shopping for dog food in this city, shopping for dog food in this city. And the reality is you just don't need to do that anymore. And Google, they've rolled out a lot of products that simplify that quite a bit and really rely on automation. So, I think the good news is there's a much simpler and really more manageable account structure that exists now, utilizing a lot of these new tools that Google has available. Now, obviously, there's some complexity there. Kind of the trade-off is you don't see as much of the detail. A lot of it's abstracted away from you. So you kind of have to know what you're doing and make some kind of good, reasonable rule of thumb, adjustments and changes as needed. But yeah, I would say if you're scared that, hey, we can't get into this because, we're not willing to hire an agency for, thousands of dollars at this lower ad spend that we're going to have, to get in and do all this different keyword research and all the different things we need to do for it. The good news is actually there's a kind of a simpler way these days, and the setup doesn't have to be quite that complex.
Okay, yeah, I'm doing Google AdWords for, I think, since that came out early 2000s for a long time. And you mentioned there were certain things that you had to do, like coming up with thousands of keywords, very painful. Yes. And things are getting actually easier there on that side. Now, obviously, e-commerce merchants, their main focus, their main time is not focused on maintaining ads. So give me a bit of an idea of what different options Google has now in their portfolio that makes it easier for a merchant to get the ads in front of the right person.
Definitely. So yeah, I think before I get real deep into some of the very specific campaign types, I think the key principles that I always like to tell people, like as you're getting started, as you're thinking about, well, what should I be doing in Google Ads? What should I be running? The big thing, you really got to make sure you're measuring things. So making sure that your website is set up to track conversions. That's a big mistake that we see oftentimes. People say, oh, I'm getting a bunch of clicks coming in, my cost per click is X. And it's like, well, really, do you know what people are doing when they get to your site? Like, do you know, did they put items in their cart? Did they, ultimately execute the checkout? Did they, are you getting revenue from it? If you can't answer some of those questions, that's a base problem. And you're never going to be successful in Google Ads until you get that set up. And then once you're feeding that data back into Google, one, it's going to help you understand how things are going. But the more important thing is nowadays, everything is automated on Google's side. So you're feeding that data back in so that Google can start to learn and improve your campaign performance based on, hey, this is the ad copy that I showed to these specific people and it worked. So let's go out there and find more people who, look or are similar demographically to those people and get similar ad copy in front of them. So to answer your question kind of more specifically, once you have those principles in place and you're understanding, hey, I want to measure what's happening, I want to use Google's automated tools, the first place to start with that is Performance Max. That's Google's newest kind of campaign type. It includes what you might be familiar with in search. So kind of keywords, people are searching for keywords, and you're going to show up an ad based on, headlines and descriptions, all text-based, typical Google search. But I think more importantly for e-commerce, it includes shopping as well. So that's going to be the carousel of products that you see across the top of your page. And what's great about that is it's pulling that data, your shopping data, directly from your website. So taking your product headlines, product descriptions, and then automatically reaching out and kind of putting those products in front of customers based on what they're searching for, and then also information about the customers themselves. So that getting that Performance Max campaign set up first is definitely kind of the key to the whole thing.
Okay. You mentioned that you do a lot of assessments for clients that are coming over from agencies or that have done that in the past themselves. Now you have a lot of different tools. Some of them you mentioned, there's Google Shopping, obviously there's Google Analytics, with that comes Google Tag Manager, and so on and so forth. So what's your first step from your side to sort of clean up whatever you get presented?
Definitely. Well, so I love working with e-commerce because more and more people are on Shopify, which is great. So Shopify out of the box is going to give you the older version of Google Analytics. That's Universal Analytics. So you just got to make sure that you have that configured properly. And as long as that's configured properly, you should have some pretty good e-commerce data flowing through. Probably another conversation for another day. That's about to change in mid-July here. They're going to be shifting over to a new version. And unfortunately, Shopify hasn't rolled out their support for that yet. So you have to have something kind of homegrown, home built. That's something that we help a lot of people out with as well. But getting that GA4 data all set up in your account. But that's the first step, whether it's Universal Analytics, GA4, make sure that you've got your Google Ads data or your Google data, your site-wide data coming into one of these free analytic products. And Google Analytics does just a great job. It's free, it's easy to see. You can see all your data, whether it's coming from Google Ads, Facebook ads, organic traffic. So that's great setup. And then once we turn to your Google account, similarly, you're going to want to make sure that you have your conversion tracking set up there. So you're making sure that you're tracking when people are executing these various behavioral events. You want to make sure you're sending over your customer data. So there's a number of different ways to do this. We recently have been using Klaviyo a lot as the kind of the piping for that. So we're using, if you already have email lists set up in Klaviyo, it's pretty easy to pipe that data right over to Google Ads. And now you have, a customer set up or a customer list set up in Google Ads that you can later use for targeting. And then one of the last things or kind of the other thing you need there is just some general information about your value proposition, your who you're selling to. You're going to have to provide some headlines and descriptions. I mentioned all that shopping data is kind of pulled straight from your site, so you don't have to worry too much about that. You may want to edit it later to optimize and improve it, but the big thing you're going to have to put in is some headlines, some descriptions, hopefully some images if you have some, and video works really well these days as well. So some of that great content, but the core of all of that is obviously understanding who your customer is and what your goals are to be able to create that content properly.
Yeah. So you mentioned Performance Max, which I love a lot, makes things so much easier. And you also mentioned that you need to have a certain assets, I think they call it, to get started. Give me a bit of tips on how these assets that can be text and whatsoever, how that should work in a perfect world. What sort of homework a merchant needs to do to get this going?
Definitely. So what's great is, again, they're making it easier and easier. So it's work that you probably already should have done on your site in general, just information. I mean, the core of all of this is understanding your customer, understanding your value proposition, understanding why somebody would buy the product. But then you're going to get to provide headlines. That's 25 to 30 character line text, descriptions, which are either 60 or 90 characters. And those you're going to want to go back to, the same things that you would use as headers on your website, the, kind of things that are attention grabbing, explain the value props of the product, sell yourself to the customer. And what's really cool about those is you're going to specify 15 headlines, and between long headlines and descriptions, I think you get ultimately about 10 of those. And then once you run your ads for a little while, you're going to get some data back, and Google's going to tell you which ones are performing best, good and poor. And then from there, it's really just a matter of kind of A/B testing and switching out the ones that aren't performing as well and switching in better ones that kind of match or have some similar themes to the ones that are performing well. So that is what I would do for your text creative. Really, image-based is kind of similar. You can provide square images or landscape images. There's very specific kind of dimensions and requirements there, but essentially you're just providing a bunch of images, and then Google's going to mix and match those and set those with different text-based assets that you have already provided, and hopefully kind of put those combinations in front of the people that they're going to be most likely to work with. So you can kind of continue iteratively, take out the lower performing ones and add in higher performing ones, as you would with the text-based assets.
Okay. Now with Performance Max, a lot of artificial intelligence working in the background. You need some data. So how long would you recommend, or how long does it take before the algorithm really kicks in and you get a feedback that you can basically then start with the A/B testing?
So it's a little bit about time. I would say you're certainly going to need at least a week to 2 weeks, oftentimes a month or two. But more important than that, it's the amount of data that you're getting back. So they say 50 purchases. So you really want kind of 50 purchases for a single Performance Max campaign, 50 purchases over the course of a month. And the reason why that number is important, or kind of important to think about, is it kind of gets back to where you're setting your budget at, right? So if you imagine, if we're really doing a great job for you and you're getting some great results, you may see like a 3x return. That's kind of a starting point if we don't know any other information about a business, kind of where my prior would be. So that means for every $1 in ad spend, you're getting back $3 in revenue. So if you use those numbers, you can start to back out, okay, well, how many dollars in ad spend do I need to put up at my average order value to get 50 purchases over the course of that first month? And that's the kind of takeaway. So to a degree, you can actually or kind of compress the learning phase if you're spending a little bit more and getting a little bit more data in. I definitely would not recommend like, hey, let's go throw $5,000 a day at this thing and we're going to be up and running in one day. Don't worry about it. We're going to get plenty of data in. Like, you definitely want to take it slow and start to see some of the data going in, making manual adjustments as necessary too. But just recognize that if I tell you that, hey, within 2 weeks to probably 2 to 6 weeks, you should have a pretty good assessment of whether or not Performance Max is going to work for you. If you're really limiting your budget, you may not be able to get that assessment done that quickly because you're going to be limiting the amount of data coming back in.
Okay, yeah, absolutely makes sense to have enough data to make a educated decision there. Now, your team at PPC Pitbulls, you said you're working also with Klaviyo and obviously coming from the Shopify side of things. How do you work on customer lifetime value? So basically retargeting, remarketing, is that something that you can do with these new tools of Google as well, or is that a separate strategy?
Definitely, yeah. So what's nice about Performance Max, again, is that comes right out of the box. So as long as you set up that first step, you have your measurement done, and when people hit your website, you're sending back that cookie data to Google. And on top of that, you're using Klaviyo or some other solution to send your email customer list back to Google. Google knows who's been on your site and who's been, long-term customers. And if you're using Klaviyo, even more segmented information about them as well. And as we're sending that data back into Google, in Performance Max will automatically do some retargeting. So they'll show different ads to different people along the life cycle journey, whether it be, hey, we show them a shopping ad first, and then once they've clicked through and gotten to the website, then we later hit them with display ads and YouTube ads to make sure we ultimately close the sale, those types of things. That would be my suggestion at first if you're getting started. if you have much bigger budgets and, it's down the line and you're starting to grow up and you've, kind of maxed out what you can do with Performance Max, there's some really cool things we can do, in some of the very specific campaign types too, whether it be, YouTube remarketing, display remarketing, even certain approaches inside of search itself. But to get started, really just throw it all into Performance Max and let Google kind of handle that for you. Especially at lower budgets, I think that's probably your best chance of success.
Okay. You as an expert, question, you have done Facebook for a long time, as we all have. There's Google. I think it's shifting a little bit right now because Facebook is sort of not as predictable as it was in the past. What's your prediction going forward, maybe for this year, is how much power will Google regain, put it that way, compared to other ad platforms?
Yeah, I like Google a lot. That's where a lot of our background has been. It's very intent based. So, when somebody comes into Google, they're already searching for a product similar to yours. You have that search information already. So I think, especially for smaller businesses, Google is super, super powerful. I think the challenge is when you get into really trying to scale very far. If you're trying to say, hey, I want to spend $100,000 a month in ad spend, you're probably not going to get that done on Google, at least at first. That's where you've got to layer in some of these other approaches and use things like Facebook. But yeah, I think with things like TikTok coming up, people are really focusing in on email marketing as well. I think you're going to see probably more dispersion in the ad market. I hear stories too about a lot of kind of like digital ads on some of the streaming services and different things like that. So there's going to be a lot of different places to put ad dollars. I would say probably all of the platforms in the past, it's been, Facebook and Google kind of take up 99% of those digital marketing dollars. I think we're going to see that disperse in general. For us personally, especially with smaller, medium brands, we're pulling back on Facebook a little bit. We're just not seeing the effectiveness there quite as much, but I definitely work with some partners as well that do see a lot of success on Facebook as well. So I don't know that there's a right answer between those two. It's more kind of what's right for your brand and ultimately what's working when you're measuring it and taking a look at what results you're getting. But I'd say in general, you're probably going to see more dispersion. And then also more of a focus on, rather than these platforms, kind of direct response marketing, really focusing in on your email marketing and making sure that for the data that you have, for the customer information that you have, once somebody's made a purchase, once they visited your site, make sure you're nurturing those leads. Because that's, you're going to need to use Google ads, Facebook ads at some point to grow your list, but ultimately that email marketing is going to be your most profitable source, to the extent that you have it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think a omni-channel approach is the best you can do. Just spread your marketing budget over all channels and then also do remarketing on every channel. Quite often it happens that people see you on one channel, they still come back to Google and buy from there. So they will get the conversion at the end of the day.
Exactly.
If a small business comes to you, what kind of packages do you offer? What's the process there? How does that work?
Yeah, so we typically like to start, we call it our 90-day e-commerce digital marketing success roadmap. Kind of a mouthful. We're still working on the naming there, but essentially we'll do an audit and look at what you're currently doing. If you're on any of these channels, look at how you're measuring your results. Look at some of your main competitors. How are they participating on a lot of these different channels? And kind of just figure out for your company specifically, for your brand specifically, what's the best way to achieve your goals? And that's going to be, it's really different for every brand, based on what your budgets are, what your goals are. Is it specific product lines, specific geographies, are certain features of your product might make them more liable to sell on Facebook versus Google, whatever it is. We'll really kind of get to know you and your business and then ultimately create a really clear 90-day step-by-step. This is what you need to get done to have success in your e-commerce marketing. So that's one of our big things we like to kind of get started with. Really, it's a good way for us to get to know new clients, and then ultimately you've got a valuable piece of a valuable item there that you can take, whether you decide to continue working with us to go ahead and implement some of the steps of that plan, or if you want to take it implement it in-house or go ahead and, work with someone else to get those steps done. But that's always the first step. I always tell people if they come in and say, hey, this is my budget, this is what I want to spend on Google Ads, let's get started, let's knock it out. It's, I think it's important to take that step back first, say, okay, well, what are your goals? What are you actually trying to get done with that budget? Let's not just throw a bunch of money at the wall. Let's figure out what your goals are and how we can best meet them.
100%, yeah. Are there specific industries or verticals that you work with, or do you work all over the place?
We work with a lot of different industries. We try to focus, we call them craft brands. So that's, great people making great products is kind of my tagline for that. But, the types of things that, it's higher quality food, fashion, housewares, things that people kind of have a mission behind, or just really passionate people who are building products the right way and delivering these products. That's, personally for me, I find more fun to work with those types of businesses. So that's kind of why I like to partner with them. But then also, we find typically those are a little bit higher value products, and it's a little bit easier to kind of, it's not just a race to the bottom of who can sell it cheapest. You can kind of take some time to explain the benefits of the product and what makes it so special. That makes it a little bit easier to succeed, I think, on some of these paid marketing channels.
Yeah, who can pay the most gets the sale, basically. And
exactly,
working with cheap Chinese drop shippers probably is not much fun. Tell me a little bit about the pricing structure. What can I expect there?
So we do everything kind of flat rate. So our base package for that initial audit plan, that's a $1,200 audit. Once we go through that, we have everything kind of set up. It's roughly keyed to how much you're spending, but we don't want to be one of these agencies that manages your ads based on, exactly to the T. If you spend this many dollars in ad spend, then that's, the percentage that we get paid, because that just incentivizes. It's not a good incentive that all we're trying to do is spend your money at that point. So we roughly have different tiered packages sized at, really just to kind of help us figure out how much support you need. But it's all flat rate and it's month to month. So you kind of come in, we'll give you that audit, figure out exactly what services you might need. If you decide to continue working with us, you'll know exactly what you're going to pay every single month, no contract. You can cancel at any time. And we will, help you meet your goals. That's our primary objective.
Yeah, I love that approach. Makes it much easier in budgeting, which is important if you're a cash flow business in the beginning as a startup, as a small business. So much more easier and doesn't give you sleepless nights when the end of the month comes.
Yeah.
Andy, where can people find out more about you guys?
So come find us on ppcpitbulls.com. Hopefully we'll have that link in the show notes here. But yeah, you can come in, learn a little bit about us. We have a bi-weekly show that we put up, a YouTube show that you can come check out. And then feel free to book a call with me. I offer free strategy sessions. So we'll sit down, kind of get to know you, get to know your business. And ultimately you'll leave with some valuable insights that you should be able to apply on day one.
Cool. I will put the links in the show notes and you're just one click away. My experience with my coaching clients is that at some point they are super happy to work with the right agency because it can be just overwhelming, and working with Google is chasing a moving target because there's always so much new stuff in there. So it's better to leave it to the experts. Andy, thanks so much for your time. A lot of golden nuggets in there, and have a great day.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Hey, Klaus here. Before you go, I would like to invite you to become part of the e-commerce merchant pro community to get actionable advice from other Shopify merchants who already have achieved what you are aiming for. Our community is a safe place to actively grow your online retail business with the support of the most amazing and helpful group of e-commerce entrepreneurs behind you. Running a Shopify business is tough. Don't do it alone. Join us now. You will find the link in the show notes. Also, if you think your online store has conversion or marketing issues and you would like to have a fresh set of eyes on your business, then drop me an email at klaus@klauslauter.com and let me know a little bit about your business. It might be beneficial for you to have me look over your store, offers, emails, and ads, and get an unbiased outside perspective and guidance to help you make most of your online business. Thank you as always for tuning in today. I appreciate you. Until next time, and I talk to you soon.